Agent Morris with the NSA.
We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Flag could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello. Welcome to another edition of Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Smiles Lewis. This is the weekly, sometimes live news and media roundup for the 501c3 nonprofit Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives. Thank you for joining us. We try to release this show every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're not sure if we're going to be able to continue that schedule. There's various life things happening that may interfere with getting the show out on that regular of a basis. We're also considering doing shorter, more frequent little episodes, but just watch the YouTube channel here or our website, anomalyarchives.org, and of course our Patreon at patreon.com/anomalyarchives. Well, we've got some fun stuff coming up for our patrons. You can go to that Patreon website, patreon.com/anomalyarchives or anomalyarchives.org and link through. But yeah, we've got a good presentation coming up soon. That's going to be Tui Snyder. Tui Snyder is a wonderful, amazing researcher into cemetery history, that sort of thing, cemetery symbolism, tombstone symbolisms, and she's been traveling a lot and has this new wonderful book called Around the World in 80 Graves, subtitled Travel, Tombstones, and Transformation. And she's going to be giving our patrons a presentation about that. So we're very excited to have her as a presenter and hope that you'll join us. Folks can sign up for free or various levels of monthly giving, all of which helps us at the Anomaly Archives. So please consider doing that. And that's coming up September 24th next month. So hope you'll join us. And of course, you can go to her website, which is tuisnyder.com. That's TUISNIDER, tuisnyder.com. And you can learn all about her. She's a sweetie, and she's going to be appearing on Coast to Coast AM next month as well. So keep an ear out for that. That should be really cool. If you'd like more information on her, you can read. She is a regular contributor to American Cemetery and Cremation. That's at kates-boylston.com, and she has this July 31st article, Cemetery Shapes, over at that website, where she often writes for. So you can check that out. And also there's a lot of course, she did a presentation for us back in 2020. And that was part of our Streamathon fundraiser. And, but if you go to the YouTube channel for Austin Parks and Recreation, that's youtube.com/@Austin City Parks. You can search for all the videos. There's like 6 or 7 of these videos that she's done on cemetery symbolism, etc., at local parks here in Austin, Texas. And I think you might enjoy that. All right. Well, that's all for that. And yeah, we've got not affiliated with the Anomaly Archives, but tomorrow night, if you're in the South Austin area, you may want to go over to Cosmic Cafe and join David, myself, and others for Alien Beers and Cheers number 5. That's Cosmic Coffee at 7 p.m. Thursday, August 28th. That's tomorrow. Today being Wednesday, August 27th. And yeah, you can go to the meetup group that we linked to, find out details about that. We'll be talking about all things weird and ufological and all related subjects. David has recently rebranded the meetup as Area 512. Of course, Austin's oldest area code, phone area code is 512. And so, yes, he's rebranded as Area 512 and after, of course, Area 51. Anyway, check it out and let's dive in. We've got some AI news, and I'm going to do a lot of follow-up news today, but of course you can go to our Flipboard, flipboard.com/@anomalyarchives, or go to anomalyarchives.org and find all the links there. And in the show notes for the podcast. Oh, that reminds me, last week's show, for those that watch the show, you may have seen something humorous that happened when I came back from a break. I commented that I had to speed through the remaining news stories, and somehow the audio on the video glitched and was not quite chipmunks, but pitched my voice higher and faster. And that was kind of a weird synchronicity. Those of you just listening to the audio version, you heard a normal version. But there you go. Anyway, AI news. So yeah, AI can do some good, as much as we comment on the potential negative issues surrounding it. Here is something from Wired.com. AI is designing bizarre new physics experiments that actually work. Artificial intelligence software is designing novel experimental protocols that improve upon the work of human physicists, although the humans are still, quote, doing a lot of babysitting. So you'll want to check that out there over at Wired.com and read some of that good news. And over at Popular Mechanics is this one. An AI system found a new kind of physics that scientists had never seen before. Scientists had theorized about the possibility of a plasma physics phenomenon, but their AI system discovered the real thing. Yes, here's their bullet points for this article: for all the problems AI is causing society. Exactly. One of its greatest benefits lies in the world of science. A new study focused on the chaotic dynamics of dusty plasmas found that when trained properly, AI can actually discover new physics all on its own. By providing the most detailed description of this type of matter, the AI corrected long-held theoretical beliefs about how particles behave inside a dusty plasma. So you might want to check that out. Now, I think this might be paywalled, but I was able to read it earlier. It's not letting me in there now, but that's fine, because the New York Times, I take them or leave them, right? The newspaper of record, maybe a long time ago. But yeah, they've got an article on, chatbots can go into a delusional spiral. And they talk about examples of this. This is obviously a very concerning things. You've got these AI that are quote unquote hallucinating and pretty much lying, providing false information. I don't know if you can lie if you actually aren't conscious, but in effect, that is the outcome. Of course, we were talking about last week how a mentally challenged individual had been convinced by an AI chatbot to go on a trip to New York City to meet the AI, and he did not survive. And so you've, I'm sure, heard of all the different cases of people experiencing what they're calling, AI psychosis, etc. And even South Park got into the mix recently with their AI inspired episode, which basically amounts to them showing, and this is actually something that's in this New York Times article, that basically these are sycophant machines, that they're basically just telling you what you want to hear. And even if you try to get it to give you, more accurate information, it's going to tend towards telling you, it's sort of supporting a confirmation bias situation, but basically encouraging people's delusions through this kind of sycophancy. Meanwhile, follow up to what we were also reported last week. BBC News is now covering this. YouTube secretly used AI to edit people's videos. The results could bend reality. And this is a very concerning issue. And this is just something I'm going to highlight here today. And we were talking about how some content producers had noticed that the short clips that are variously called reels or stories or clips, whatever, there's different names for them on different platforms, but on YouTube's platform, there seemed to be some kind of quote unquote AI upscaling or some kind of compression. There's always been compression applied to YouTube videos, which causes all kinds of issues for content creators, but this was causing various people to perceive the videos that they had uploaded as having been recreated by AI. And these content creators are very upset about this, and the fact that it was done without being asked, it just portends so much concern. As these scare quotes here, AI is increasingly a medium that defines our lives and realities. Yes, what happens if people know that companies are editing content from the top down without even telling the content creators themselves? These are important questions. I mean, it's their platform, but it's the content creators who are the ones making the content that is making them money. So you'd think that they would have some kind of obligation to those creators. Now, going for a little bit of a deeper dive is this most excellent Daily Grail article by Miguel Romero, Red Pill Junkie, from August 21st, last week. AI, gray filters, and the collapsing unconscious. Miguel is somebody who's always been a really outside the box thinker and is an amazing artist. If you aren't familiar with him, he started out as a commenter on a blog that no longer exists called UFO Mystic, UFOMYSTIC.com, UFO Mystic, where Nick Redfern and Greg Bishop and one or two others occasionally posted blog entries, news articles, kind of stuff. And Red Pill Junkie, Miguel Romero rather, started commenting there as a regular reader and had obviously great insights. And he's of course gone on to create many covers for UFO books, paranormal books, and also did the artwork for the wonderful UFO tarot cards that were produced by Greg Bishop and others, Josh Cutchin, Susan Demeter, and Miguel Romero. Anyway, this is a recent article of his. It starts with the quote from Jacques Lacan: the unconscious is structured like a language. And he begins the article with, over at his Substack blog, American cultural critic and music historian Ted Gioia, Gioia, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, wrote about his worries that ours may be the last generation capable to distinguish reality from doctored digital fabrications. With the rise of AI and its increased sophistication, Ted warns, very soon it will be impossible to know if videos or photos are genuine or fake. And this is what I'm trying to get at here, folks. I think the singularity is upon us, and the singularity is our inability to recognize reality from fabrications. Now, Miguel goes on, I'm not sure I share Ted's fears. Sure, my 85-year-old dad is unable to tell whether the photo he received from his friends group on WhatsApp isn't Gen AI image or not, and he lacks the proper discipline to fact check the source of the bogus news he finds on his social media feeds. But that's where I come in. All those years perusing blurry photos of UFOs and Bigfoot finally paid off. In fact, detecting whether an image is generated by an AI model is arguably getting easier, not harder. Take a look at the more examples of AI slop shared online. Have you noticed most of these pictures have a distinct yellow hue in them? So he kind of goes off on something here that I'm not really familiar with, but yeah, he gives some examples of AI generated artwork and this weird yellow hue. Here's some other examples in these images here. Now, he relates this to what's called model collapse and how, this AI slop is feeding on itself. And this is, of course, a recurring theme in analyses of and critiques of where we are with AI and so forth. But that's not the main point of his article here. So he, skipping ahead, he says, take, for instance, the early experiments with AI-generated imagery, which looked as if the algorithms had been injected with a digital version of DMT. And yes, I completely, that's an accurate representation. The result, though I've never taken DMT, the resulting shapes were fluid, dreamlike, chaotic, incongruent, and often morphed human and animal faces. An older Gen AI portrait of Alan Moore made him look like a psychedelic dogman. Such therianthropic imagery, human figures displaying animal-like characteristics, were very common in ancient petroglyphs and interpreted by modern scholars as the result of shamanic rituals in which mind-altering substances might have been consumed. But most anthropologists might not be aware that early UFO close encounter reports were also filled with testimonies of witnesses describing similar therianthropic humanoids. Below are a few examples drawn by yours truly, RPJ, of such bizarre visitors. Excuse me. And there you can see some images there. This kind of goblin-esque creature with pointy ears and fangs from the 1978 case in Guyot. Long fingers and claws. And these bird-like entities from VAR 1962 and Rauma, RAUMA in 1979. He goes on. Aside from the animal-headed euphonauts, there is no denying that the older close encounter cases displayed a wider array of entities reported by witnesses. From leprechauns equipped with gyrocopter chairs like the one who slaughtered all the sheep of an indigenous woman in Bolivia in 1967, to humanoids with fused legs ending on a single foot, like the ones that invited an anonymous witness to visit their ship in Loma de Balleno, Peru in 1949. The entities told the witness in perfect Spanish they had evolved beyond the need for sex to reproduce, and they could also exchange nutrients just by contact. The monofoot is a trope that would be repeated in other cases, like the famous Pascagoula abduction of 1973, or the less-known abduction from Paciência, Brazil in 1977, where the witness was captured and subjected to a medical examination by metallic-looking robots standing on a cylindrical pedestal and sporting tentacle-like arms. More images here by RPJ that are so wonderful. I love his sketches. Yes. But then came Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and not long after, the intrusion of the so-called alien abduction phenomenon in global consciousness through the popularization of reports collected and doctored, either through selection or insemination, by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. Agree. The cultural impact caused by the cover of Whitley Strieber's Communion has been amply discussed and cannot be overstated. Before the 1980s, Close Encounters, gathered by investigators from all around the world, displayed a colorful bestiary of UFOnauts. After the 1980s, the reports became more amalgamated until the stereotype of the alien gray or gray alien, short stature, emaciated body, oversized, inverted teardrop head, massive black almond-shaped eyes, slit-like, lipless mouth, barely discernible nose, no ears, became the expected manifestation of alien visitation. Yes, there is that infamous cover. One can try to explain this apparent uniformity with all sorts of speculation. If you're an advocate of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, ETH, perhaps you would imagine that Earth used to be visited by dozens of alien groups until the Greys drove all the competitors away and imposed a quote-unquote cosmic embargo on our planet. We could also imagine that the older, wilder entity configurations were screen memories imposed by the Greys to confuse the witnesses, but the facade was lifted once researchers learned how to retrieve memories from the minds of UFO experiencers. A more parsimonious explanation would be that Hopkins and Jacobs nitpicked the data collected from their experiencer sources in favor of the narrative they were expecting to find and discarded the descriptions they deemed confabulations because it didn't fit that narrative. Or, as Jacques Vallée and others have pointed out, there is a selective process on the part of the experiencers. So if an abductee or somebody who's had a strange experience hears Bud Hopkins or David Jacobs or John Mack describe certain types of encounters, if their encounter fits them, then they're more likely to go to that researcher. So there's a selection process at multiple levels. Continuing, RPJ says, yes, of course. I like to speculate as much as any other UFO buff. It's pretty much all most of us can do due to the lack of actual verifiable evidence. But since I'm a contrarian by nature and the ETH bores me to tears, I would like to propose another type of speculation as mental experiment. And this is where he gets kind of out there. And I'm not sure whether I agree, but it kind of jives with some of my own ideas. Let us suppose that French philosopher Jacques Lacan was right and the unconscious is structured like a language. Perhaps by feeding their hungry algorithms with the entirety of human knowledge available online, AI developers inadvertently created something that is not sentient or even intelligent, as they naively intended, but crudely resembles the landscape of the unconscious mind nonetheless, as Slovenian philosopher Alenka Zubančič proposes in this Substack piece. And there's a link there to Welcome to the Riviera of the Real by this Alenka fellow. But I will go even further than Zubančič, just for the hell of it, and propose that perhaps generative AI models somehow mimic the relationship between the unconscious mind and the paranormal. To reiterate, perhaps generative AI models somehow mimic the relationship between the unconscious mind and the paranormal. As stated previously, we've gone from the shamanic therianthropes and wild visions of the early close encounters to the same old boring flavor of the month of the gray alien stereotype. Funny how, just like previous AI models often got the number of fingers on human hands wrong, the number of fingers in gray type aliens is also a matter of some debate. Some witnesses report 3 fingers, others 4, etc. If this is indeed the case, and the paranormal is somehow related to how AI algorithms operate, then the current gray filter of homogeneous entity reports would be a symptom of that paranormal model degrading and collapsing over the decades, after falling into the same vicious cycle experienced by AI models when they are repeatedly trained and retrained on AI slop. Perhaps the human unconscious suffers the same degradation when it is continuously exposed to derivative UFO slop churned by generic documentaries and exploitative TV shows. Do not ask me to provide a mechanism. Yeah. So he's not saying, look, I'm sure about this. It's just speculation, and that's all we can do. And he's interested in, as he says, I'm more interested in expanding creativity and getting rid of abusive systems of control. I'm not interested in living in a world where open AI drives all genuine artistic efforts into the ground, the same way I'm not interested in listening to generic UFO narratives predicated as if they were religious dogmas. He then invokes Joshua Cutchin, using the parlance of my friend Joshua Cutchin's fourth wall phantoms. I want to see if there are ways to retcon the UFO mythos, although I'm not sure how it could be done, he says. In a 2023 interview, computer science visionary Jaron Lanier openly talked about his disagreements over current AI technology with his peers in Silicon Valley. Unlike Sam Altman and most of the tech bros, he doesn't think generative AI models display any sort of intelligence, and warns about worshiping the code as if it were the dawn of a coming digital deity. There is Jaron Lanier, dreadlocks and all. He was an early pioneer of virtual reality and has been profoundly against what the internet has become. Miguel goes on. RPJ says, I feel this is an approach that could prove to be useful in the UFO field as well, where so many worship the alien and regard the human component of paranormal experiences as secondary or less important, when in fact it's probably the reverse. Just as worshiping the code and treating AI models as superintelligences end up dehumanizing society and profiting the promoters of these technologies, worshiping the alien has brought us all sorts of unreliable narratives ripe for exploitation by questionable actors. The promises of disclosure advocates are as ludicrous as those of the singularity prophets, and they distract us from the real immediate problems we should focus on: climate change and economic inequality, to name but a few. And this is his concluding thought. Perhaps it's time to entertain the disturbing possibility that just as there is no ghost inside the machine, there might be no higher intelligence behind UFO events or other paranormal manifestations. Perhaps, just perhaps, we've been fooling ourselves with the distorted echoes of our own unconscious voice. And yeah, there is the famous tale of the man becoming entranced by looking at his reflection. So, yeah, I mean, I constantly tell people I do think that there is a high likelihood of a true alien other at the heart of the UFO phenomenon, whatever the heck it is. And yet, I do entertain various other possibilities that maybe we are deluding ourselves. Maybe we are interacting with something that seems alive, seems conscious, seems self-aware, but in fact is so enmeshed in our own consciousness, our own unconscious, our own archetypes, our own collective psyche, that it just is able to convince us of that. I don't know that that's true, but it's certainly something we shouldn't write off as impossible. So one of the articles that Miguel references this one: "Our shared reality will self-destruct in the next 12 months" by Ted Gioia, Gioia. And this is over at honest-broker.com. What happens when you can't trust photos, video, text, or the entire web? Yeah, that's where we're at. This, of course, this article starts by mentioning, quote, "During the Great Purges of the 1930s, Stalin ordered the execution of 1 million people, including some of his closest associates. But it wasn't enough to kill these victims. They also had to disappear from photographs. In a famous case, Nikolai Yezhov got removed from his position next to Stalin in a photo taken by the Moscow Canal. This erasure alarmed many party elites because Yezhov, head of the secret police, had been one of the most feared men in the Soviet Union, and now he got totally deleted." Yeah, that headline will, "Our shared reality will self-destruct in the next 12 months. This idea of the inability for people to determine what is real. So maybe we should stop praying to the alien.
I'm praying to the aliens. I'm praying to the aliens.
Of course, that is the song "Praying to the Aliens" by Two-Boy Army, aka Gary Newman. And in his biography titled "Praying to the Aliens," there actually is a reference to UFOs on page 111. He says, "I think I saw a UFO once on the way home from one of those dance sessions. It was a short time after the Wembley shows, about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was with my new girlfriend, Michelle Adams. It was very dark and a little damp as it had been raining, and the cloud cover was quite low. We were driving alongside a major motorway junction when a light shone down out of the clouds. The strange thing about the beam was that it appeared to be in the shape of an upside-down pyramid. The apex of the ray appeared to just touch the surface of the road. At the point where it came through the cloud, it was perfectly square and very large. It didn't move, and there was no discernible sound. I stopped the car, feeling frightened, to be honest, and we watched this object for several seconds. I knew from what the cloud was covering, local hills, pylons, that kind of thing, that the cloud base was only about 400 feet up at best, and the width of the beam as it came through the cloud was at least that, if not more. This ruled out helicopters or any other flying vehicle that I was aware of, as did the lack of noise. The light vanished as quickly as it came, like flicking off a switch. And in another reference to the Daily Grail, they have posted on their Patreon a free video that normally they do a weekly video that's available only to Patreon paying members, but they have posted one for free. It's a 35-minute chat called Behind the Grail for 8/22/2025. The question of Joe. Oh, what Joe are they talking about? Of course, Joe Rogan. Of course, so many people we often reference on this show. Everything is so divisive politically these days. And I know that there are strong feelings about just about everybody. And Joe Rogan's obviously one of them. But he has on a lot of people, quote unquote, important to the UFO scene, and who are interested in a variety of these topics. But anyway, this was a very fun conversation that gets to a lot of what I've said at times when I have defended Joe Rogan, in so much as I don't necessarily feel he's the worst thing in the world, even as I recognize that he does often offer bad information and uncritically puts it out there. I do think that people with that wide of an audience do have an obligation to be more discerning and careful in their fact checking. But anyway, you might find this interesting. That is Miguel there on the left, and Greg Taylor, the founder of the Daily Grail, there on the right. Miguel is in Mexico, and Greg is in Australia, and it's always fun hearing them talk. And they reference a documentary that they link to that I have not had the chance to watch yet, but let's see. Yeah. How does it describe it? A fantastic YouTube video I had watched that took both Joe and his larger circle of friends and guests, Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, Tony Hinchcliffe, etc., to task for moving into their own quote-unquote hyper realities. It's full of super dry humor and is part of a larger series about the modern stand-up comedy scene. So you may have to work to get into it for the first 8 minutes or so, but if you can stick with it, it quickly draws you in from that point on. It's an amazing piece, very Adam Curtis, fantastic soundtrack and editing with a massive satirical humorous edge to the narration. But also has a stack of great insights, discussion of tech billionaires, hyper realities, and the dark enlightenment, and hoists many of those in the Rogan verse on their own petards over and over again. Now, what also caught my attention, I have watched this 35-minute episode of Greg and Miguel Behind the Grail. Enjoyed it, like I say, but they're mostly talking about their own thoughts on the Rogan verse, and where he started and where he is now, and where he may go in the future. But of course, it seems a lot predicated on this video that they link to, which I have not had the chance to watch, but I am very intrigued by their description of it, and you might find that of note as well. All right, well, gonna move into the UFO portion of the show. Let me do some house cleaning here and check on time. Here we go. All right, so yes, of course, you can go to our Flipboard. There's tons of news articles there. So on the Tech Bro universe, I want, and following up on several things, there's a lot of great links over at our Flipboard, and there's this video from the Red Panda Koala YouTube channel where he's quoting this researcher who I was not really familiar with before, named Courtney Marcasani. It's spelled, her last name is spelled M-A-R-C-H, like March, E-S-A-I, like E-S-A-N-I, M-A-R-C-H, March, E-S-A-N-I. Marcasani is apparently how she pronounces that. Courtney Marcasani. And yeah, so I became aware of her when she appeared, as you can see here, on 10 days ago on Pavel's Psychoactivo episode number 570, where he interviews her for about an hour. And one of the main points that they're talking about is this idea of controlled disclosure that's been promoted by various people, especially Colonel Carl Nell. Now, Carl Nell is a very interesting figure. There's definitely things I've heard about him that caused me great concern. I was very impressed with his presentation at the, that reminds me, at the Rice, at the Rice University conference this year, the 2025 Rice conference. Gosh darn it. Let's see if I can pull up what I'm looking for. There we go. Well, anyway, going back to the Peter Thiel stuff. So, and the Carl Nell stuff. So yeah, Marcasani was on Pavel's show, and she is alleging, she says that it's fairly common knowledge, but it's only finally been gotten out to the public that the person who has been pushing this idea of an alien spacecraft on its way here that's going to arrive in some unknown time, either later next year or on 2027 or 2030 or something, that she, I think in this video, is asserting that it is Carl Nell. And I've since found this other video of her being quoted, and this is again back over yes, this Red Panaquala video. She's quoted as saying, people were approached by Peter Thiel with a financial contract to cover UFOs in the media. And this also, she is saying that it was open knowledge amongst the people associated with this yet to be released Age of Disclosure UFO UAP documentary that Peter Thiel funded. It was at least one of the funders. Yeah, so obviously a lot more potential deep dives to be done on all this, but it seems like the pieces have all been out there. People are finally starting to talk about it and connect the dots with the red string on their murder boards. So make of that what you will. But there's a lot of other great links that we're not going to get to, obviously, but you should check that out. Check out the Flipboard and other news. Some big news here with that organization in the UK called Unhidden, over at their website, unhidden.org, unhidden.org. They have this new publication out just this month, Potential Health Effects Associated with Exposure to Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, a literature review, has an introduction by Jacques Vallée, and you can download the report for free there. And over at Ryan Sprague's blog, he's got an article on it called New Report Warns, Encounters with UAP May Pose Serious Health Risks, Time for Transparency and Action. And he goes into some detail about the report, as well as, again, mentioning that it's got an introduction or a forward by Jacques Vallée. Again, this is something that we've harped upon for a long time, is as fascinating as UFOs are, they are not to be taken lightly. And it is highly probable that the high levels of energy involved with this phenomena could pose significant health issues for close encounter witnesses. Now, moving slightly away from the quote-unquote UFO UAP issue, there's this new article over at twz.com. That's The War Zone, titled, What Were the New Jersey Drones? Former high-ranking FAA official gives his take. A former UAP task force member and high-ranking National Security Council official tells us what he knows about the New Jersey drone scare. Now, I don't know if I want to read too extensively from this. It's the second half of a longer interview. I don't know what was talked about in the first part of the interview, but I think, as usual, the war zone is doing good work here. And just listen to this person's resume. For nearly a decade, starting in 2011, Brett Fedderson, a retired Army officer, served in a wide range of executive roles under the Obama and first Trump administrations. He was National Security Liaison, Senior Intelligence Officer for the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, Deputy Chief of Intelligence for the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, Senior Advisor for Strategy, Plans, and Policy for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS, worked in the Executive Office of the President, was Director for Transportation and Border Security at the National Security Council, NSC, Principal Deputy Director for the JCS, Trans-Regional Threats Coordination Cell, and an executive director at the FAA. He was also a member of the Navy's UAP task force created in 2020 to investigate what used to be known as UFOs. Fedderson is currently chairman of the Security Industry Association's Counter-UAS Working Group and is vice president of Strategy and Government Affairs for Defend Solutions, which supplies counter-drone equipment to the U.S. military, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, and other clients. Doesn't that kind of imply a possible conflict of interest? I'm not saying there is, but anyway, yeah. So the main gist is he really reaffirms what I've been saying all along about the drone situation, that there are legitimate incursions of possibly, amateur drone operators, but more likely foreign adversaries at these military bases. But that the majority of civilian sightings were, as I and others were saying, largely misidentifications of normal craft, normal drones, doing all legal operations. He does also invoke the fact that there have been these commercial drone programs that are for payloads, moving payloads around. But yeah, basically, is very shoots straight on all of this, but does acknowledge that there are those reports that fall outside their capability to explain, and that those are true UFO, UAP, that they're unidentified and don't seem to be exhibiting capabilities that they think they or foreign adversaries could have. And yeah, I think that's important for this to be said. There was something he said, let's see. Gosh. Yeah, so at some point the questioner says, let's switch gears and talk about UAP, or what used to be known as UFOs. You were part of the UAP task force created in August 2020 to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. It was ultimately replaced by the Aero All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Can you talk about how UAPs fit into the craze over drones? He says, UAPs are a real thing that we can't identify across the globe. It's not just in the United States. So not to be conflated with drones, we just don't know what those are. And there's often a confusion with those as well that are flying in the airspace. I don't recall any true UAPs being seen in the New Jersey incident, but it's just one of those things that the government should also take seriously. What I was looking for was, there's a point in here when he's criticizing the government's response during the July case. Where he's basically saying there needed to be more transparency and better communication of what was going on. And he says that was severely lacking. So just the final question, though, he's asked, do you believe that the UAPs are advanced adversary technologies, or is it possible that these are created by non-human intelligence? He's like, anything's possible. We don't know. That's the problem. They ask again, are these created by non-human intelligence? And he kind of goes to this other position of, I don't want to comment. But the final question and answer, what is your realistic worst case nightmare scenario about drones that's going to happen? And he says, a drone that can dispense some type of aerosol or powder over a large crowd. That one is top of mind for everybody. Weaponized drones or drones being used kinetically by itself. I mean, they can reach some high speeds, 50 to 60 miles per hour, and flying into an individual is going to cause a lot of damage. Even flying into the window of a vehicle is going to create a lot of damage that will threaten the life, limbs, or eyesight of individuals. These are things that we know are being proliferated across the internet for people to do. We know that there are people inside the US who have weaponized drones or have done these things, going back to the guy who dropped dye packs in the pools over in New Jersey. There's a lot of agricultural drones that bring so much benefit, but they also have this risk factor. Anyway, not really UFO related per se, but as we've argued before, the New Jersey drone scare was in my estimation, a classic UFO flap, in the sense that it was people seeing things that they couldn't identify because mainly because the 80+% haystack of UFO sightings are misidentifications by people who just aren't used to looking up at the sky and the things that are flying around. All right, quickly continuing with some UFO news. There's another good article. FBI records on Leon Davidson offer insight into the Cold War. Leon Davidson is a character in the old UFO scene, classic UFO era, who worked on the Manhattan Project, and I believe was a chemist who began pestering people about his belief that the CIA was behind the majority of UFO sightings and that it was basically all a matter of ELINT, electronic intelligence, and ECM, electronic countermeasures that were being confused for UFOs and often deliberately misleading, being used to mislead people to make them think that it was UFOs, when in fact it was cover for some other covert activities. And so Leon Davidson is a fascinating character, but in this FOIA report from Jack Brewer over at expandingfrontiersresearch.org, he is talking about how somebody accused Leon Davidson of being a card-carrying communist. And Brewer, as usual, does a great job of explicating how the good and the bad about this kind of investigation. Like, they had to follow up the leads. They were concerned, but they found no evidence for it. And it just goes to show how easy it is to defame somebody with accusations like that. And I'd say it's still the same way now. All right. Was recently made aware of a video interview that's online. Apparently it emerged back in, I think, 2023, and then was resurrected in 2024 and is probably making rounds again now. Thank you, Greg Bishop, for pointing me towards this. It's a video clip of John Northrop, aka Jack Northrop. Yes, that Northrop, as in Northrop Grumman, the aviation giant. There is this interview with him circa 1974, talking about his belief in UFOs, not from a direct sighting of that he had, but through one's sightings had by others, including some top chief test pilots, including one named Max R. Stanley, and two very knowledgeable observers. Very, very interesting. Apparently, the original video that was put up back in 2023 got taken down, probably due to copyright violations. There are still variations of it all over the internet, but this one is over at EOC. That's Eyes on Cinema. I'm sure if you've listened to any old audio or video clips about UFOs, you've probably come across this YouTube channel. They have other social media platforms as well. EOC Eyes on Cinema. They focus on UFO related stuff, but apparently they got permission from the producer and interviewer, Nancy Dale, who is the one interviewing John Northrop in the clip. You can go and watch that. We've got it embedded at our John Northrop page over at anomalyarchives.org. She used to have a thing called the UFO Vault, and I'm looking at the archive. Her website's gone. It's down as of I think last year, but it's still available via archive.org. And she has her UFO Vault for this documentary that she put out years ago called The Elusive UFO. And it features this UFO Vault image that I'm not sure, like, did that predate John Greenwald's Black Vault image, or did she? I don't know who borrowed whose, but interesting. Anyway, you might want to go check that out. Like I say, there are other versions of that floating around, but it's fun. It's a fun video. Again, it goes to that whole idea of like people in the big military industrial complex aviation industry have long been aware of UFOs, and many of them have believed that there's something significant there. Following up on another story from last week, this time Whitley Strieber's Unknown Country, that's unknowncountry.com, titled Grush's Privacy Lawsuit Has Been Dismissed. What does this say about protections for future UAP whistleblowers? Indeed. We were reporting on how his suit against Loudoun County Sheriff's Department was dismissed. And this, of course, was all over them having released information about his medical issues, his medical issues. So there we go. Yeah. One last little thing. Our good friend Danielle Allen Jones brought to our attention online that so there's a Lubbock newspaper, or at least a website. I don't know if they have a printed newspaper, but called Lubbock Lights, after the Lubbock Lights. They're not UFO specific. They just appear to be an online newspaper news source for the local Lubbock, Texas scene. But the fact that they're called Lubbock Lights, of course, after the allegedly after the infamous famous UFO sightings of lights in Lubbock. Not really newsworthy, but hey, thanks, Daniel. And what I was reminded of earlier, but I had forgotten to prepare to mention was the Rice University Archives of the Impossible 2025 videos of that conference had been online for months and months, and I kept lamenting that they had not yet made them public. They're still not public. The original videos and the playlist that they created for them, not public. You had to have the links, you had to have the links in order to view it. They finally created their own separate Archives of the Impossible YouTube channel, and that is at youtube.com/@impossiblearchives. And you can see the title here. When I signed up yesterday, I think I only found this yesterday or the day before. They were right at 666 subscribers, so I was the 667th. But they've already jumped up to 905 subscribers. I haven't heard anybody talking about this finally going public. I don't think they've sent out an email, but God bless them. They finally got these videos up in a public way. These are separate videos, so they're having to rack up their own views. And their playlist is not in the proper order. It's not in the order that the videos, that the lectures happened, but that's okay. But you know what's at the top is my favorite video, and that is the panel discussion of experiencers in AOTI, Archives of the Impossible metadata research study. So hey, good. Anyway, as far as I can tell, these are all the same videos that were already uploaded at their Rice Humanities YouTube channel. But there you go. More news as we try to wrap up this show as we approach the 1 hour mark. Over at openculture.org, 2,178 occult books now digitized and put online thanks to the Rittman Library and Da Vinci Code author Dan Brown. Oh no. Well, hey, thank you, Dan Brown, and thank you, Rittman Library, for the thousands of occult books now. I wonder, I suspect some of these are ones that we have in our collection from the Bob Gerard collection of very old, rare books. And we shall see. So if you click over to that, they've got a link to the archive, and kudos to everybody that was involved in that. This is important work. It helps preserve these materials, and it helps make them more widely available across the world. So thank you. In other news, over at antiquetrader.com, Cottingley fairy photos fetch £2,600 at auction. A rare pair of Cottingley fairy photographs kept for decades by a woman who never stopped believing, sold at auction on July 29th. Yes, these famous images, known hoaxes, but still a touching, nostalgic, what if kind of sensation when one looks at these kinds of these old Cottingley fairy images. Oh, and this one of the weirdly impish, kind of curmudgeonly looking fairy with a big beard, coming up to a young lady sitting in her dress on the grass. Great stuff. All right. Lastly, there's of course more new videos over at Rupert Sheldrake's YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@RupertSheldrakePhD. And the one that got my attention was this plant intelligence is more mysterious than you think. The polarity of plants. He has since released another one, or I guess it was the same day. Hasn't gotten as many views. I guess it's longer. That's why. Called Gateway to the Infinite, Psychedelics and Consciousness. Oh, it must be a lecture that he did at the York Drug Society. But this idea of plant intelligence has always fascinated me. That's part of why I was such a fan of Terence McKenna's. But as usual, haven't had the chance to really dig into this yet. There's just so much to consume. I'm probably forgetting something. There were some other links I was going to talk about, but goodness gracious, that's enough, right? All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Please become a Patreon member, even if it's free at the free level. But really, if you can give $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, anything helps. And if you do the $10 or higher a month, that gets you access to our monthly lectures, which we've got coming up. Like I said, we've got Tui Snyder coming up on September 24th with her Travel, Tombstones, and Transformation talk that's based off of her Around the World in 80 Graves book. So thank you, and have a good one.
The punchline here is that AI is about, within the next year or so, going to be capable of producing compelling video evidence that will not be detectable. It's getting better all the time. It's already sufficient that, even an animal behaviorist like you or me will sometimes see a video of a creature that we don't know, and it's a little hard to know whether or not that's a real creature. I would say I'm at about 4 in 5 examples. I can usually spot it, but at 4 in 5 is not as good as I would like it. And within a year, maybe it'll be 1 in 5 that I'll be able to be sure. At some point, 2 years down the road, I won't be able to be sure at all, because the AI will be refined enough to know what a plausible creature looks like, and it will be able to therefore create creatures that if you don't actually have experience with them, you wouldn't know one way or the other. So, point is, that is going to create, first, a radical increase in the rate of proliferation of cognitive universes that we are forced to keep alive. And I suspect that the immediate consequence of that is going to be paralysis. That the number of different combinations of possibilities where you cannot resolve, you cannot get closure and say, I think I live in this world, and so I'm going to ignore all of those possibilities over there and go forward as if this is true. You're basically going to become agnostic about just about everything. And so in this mental multiverse, you will maybe be able to avoid embarrassment by not putting your weight on any of the ice, but you can't accomplish anything in that state. And that's what I'm concerned about.